What do you want? Oh, you're doing that, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. Where am I?
The podcast.
Who are you?
I'm the new number 2.
What do you want?
Information.
You won't get it.
Or by hook or by crook, I will.
What can I say then? You can edit this bit out, obviously. But
Yeah.
as I say, okay. Okay.
You've gone a bit zippy now.
I know. Okay.
Oh no, it's the Weetabix advert, wasn't it? Do you remember the Weetabix advert when they were like politically incorrect skinheads wearing their sort of really super tight
You will have
jeans?
Weetabix, you are. Yeah. Or we'll come and duff you up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roll, run VT.
Hello to Jason Isaacs and welcome to episode 22 of Nerdology. And if you haven't guessed already, we're going to be talking about The Prisoner. And my guests today are Peter Webber.
Hello.
And Bill Lynas.
Hello.
Guys, I've asked you on because I felt it was quite an important series to cover. And I think it was Peter that suggested it.
It was me
in
who
the
came
first
to you
place.
with the idea, yeah.
It's one I've kind of had in the back of my mind for a while. But what was kind of putting me off doing it was I hadn't seen it for a long time. I watched it back in the 80s when they showed it on Channel 4, which I think was about 83. So I would have been about 10. So it probably would have come across slightly differently to me as a kid than it would do watching it as an adult now. I've seen a couple of episodes, but I didn't feel that well qualified to talk about it, whereas you guys are, well, I wouldn't say aficionados, but you do like it a lot.
I have seen it too many times, yes. But it's still something people talk about, which I like after, it finished in sort of 67, 68, and people are still discussing it now.
It's perfect podcast material because it's only 7 episodes, but it's so dense. It's so... There's so much stuff in
17.
there.
17. Where were you?
It's meant to be 7 episodes.
It's meant to be 7. Okay.
Meant to be 7 episodes.
So
I said 17.
Yeah.
No, you said 7.
I said 17. Well, let's start again.
So, Bill, tell us about how The Prisoner actually came to be. How did it get started?
Okay, came to be about 1966. Patrick McGoohan had been doing a spy series on television called Danger Man.
Didn't it go by a different name in the States?
I think it was called Secret Agent.
That's right.
In the United States. Danger Man in the UK. He'd done a lot of episodes. I think he'd probably done over 80 episodes and had really had enough of doing the series. He then went to Lou Grade at ITC. And Lou Grade was pretty much a guy you don't see now. A big sort of mogul, smokes big cigars, but he never read scripts. And that was the thing. He just said to people, what's the idea? So McGoohan went to him, pitched the idea of what he had for The Prisoner, which was secret agent, gassed, wakes up in a place called The Village. Lou Grade listened to him, says, I really don't know what you're talking about, but it could work. Let's shake on it. And they did the deal. And that's how The Prisoner started.
Because a lot of people seem to think that it's a continuation of Danger Man, but I'm not sure that's...
Yeah, there is that. There is a thing, I think, in a way, I'll argue these points later on for and against. I think McGoohan had really had enough of Danger Man. And symbolistically, it's almost like he'd had enough of John Drake. And then John Drake, it was almost, he was so much living Danger Man that he was, he wakes up trapped in the village and can't get out of it. And there are lots of references to Danger Man, which I can sort of talk about later on. But when you've done any long-running series for that time, it is difficult as an actor to get out of it. But Grade amazingly gave him so much free rein. These days, series films have to go through so many channels.
Committees. It's people sat round, and before you even get started, you have to say, well, what is it about?
Yeah.
How can we make sure it appeals to everybody? How can we spell it out? So it's a series which you cannot imagine ever being done today with the same level of freedom, and that's so it's kind of, it's not just a reflection of McGowan's vision almost, but it's also to do with the way that television could be done, in a certain situation, and which you just would not get now. And it's...
So how would you sum up the appeal of The Prisoner to someone who's never watched it before? What is it about this programme that you feel is really special about it?
It doesn't. You have to work with it. You don't just simply watch it. I mean, if it would have been a spy drama, I think the confusion with The Prisoner is when people approach it, they approach it as a ITC spy series. I mean, that's how people sit down and watch it, and they take it literally. So they see the villagers number 2, they see the other characters, and they see them as spies or agents or whatever, and so they see it on a very literal continuation of what the genre was at the time.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the key to watching and to understanding it is to watch it as a piece of surrealism first, to watch it as something which you know has meaning, and I think then you can then assimilate it as you go along, taking it in a certain way. If you watch it as sort of an unfolding spy drama and trying to make it logically fit into the spy drama category, you will then find so many contradictions and things that don't make sense. You then go, well, this isn't what I wanted, and then you feel disappointed. And which, from what I can tell, I mean, obviously we weren't around at the time, so we wouldn't have known what the press reaction was like and the public reaction. But apparently he was vilified and he got hate mail and all this stuff. People just didn't get it and they hated him for it.
I think in England there was a real backlash when the last episode went out, because I think a lot of people felt like they'd been slightly hoodwinked into watching it.
He went to America, but literally he was attacked. I'm not sure if it was verbally or physically, but certainly on the street, maybe both. And the ending, which we'll probably know. Should we talk about the end at the beginning? I don't know.
Let's try and make it slightly chronological.
We'll perhaps talk about the end later. Yeah. But they were upset because a lot of the series is about who number 1 is. You don't find out at the end, and we'll talk about who it is later. But McGowan said people expected very much a big James Bond, Blofeld type villain, and that wasn't
which ties into the whole thing I was saying about people expect a spy drama, or they expect some sort of regular ITC series where it's all punch-ups and stuff. I mean, it's interesting watching the trailers for these, the American trailers for the series for each episode, where you've got an American voiceover artist who does I think he's the same guy who did the Batman ones.
Yeah.
So it's all like sort of slightly corny. Tune in next week, and it's all very punch-ups. It's all very, and all the bits they highlight are all the action bits that would appeal to people. So
they don't say Zap or Pow on the screen.
They might as well have done, but it's that kind of market where that's the wonderful conflict of interest going on here, where you've got a show which is a bit which would really be shown on BBC 4 now if it was made, but yet it's being shown to people who just, straight after watching Beverly Hillbillies or whatever's on TV.
I think a lot of people might, if they weren't quite sure of how to gauge the programme and what it was trying to say, they would just look at the whole setup of the village and the whole numbering system, because for anyone who's uninitiated, when you enter the village, you lose your name, you just become a number.
It's worth saying, if you haven't seen it yet, don't listen to this now.
Stop this the podcast
Come
now.
back in 17 episodes time.
Should we actually just set the scene in case, is there anyone out there listening who may not have seen The Prisoner? Because there may be.
Isn't that a stupid thing to do, though?
It is. Well, no, not giving it away, but just say the opening of The Prisoner. It's all in the opening titles. So if you watch the opening titles of the episode, or something from the second episode onwards, basically this man drives his car.
A very cool car.
It's a very nice car,
like that.
and he's a secret agent. He drives to headquarters, hands in his resignation letter, goes home to pack. Gas emerges through the door in his house. He wakes up thinking he's still in his house, opens the door, he's in a completely different place. He's trapped in somewhere called the village. And the whole series is him attempting to escape from the village. You can get that from the opening titles, so anyone can pick that up. And that is basically the plot, but there's
while we're on the subject of the opening titles, we cannot move away from that before we mention the theme tune, which is brilliant, one of my all-time favourites. Yeah,
Ron Grainer did the theme tune, but all credit, who knows the truth, but according to what I've read, and you can always what you believe, Patrick McGowan couldn't write music. And Patrick McGowan said, I've got the theme tune, and he whistled it to Ron Grainer. And then Ron Grainer composed it.
And then he got Delia Derbyshire to... No, that's another one.
But, I mean, Grainer's, the way he struck up, the theme is fantastic. The instruments he uses, it's It's brilliant now. It's very timeless.
It does what every signature tune should do. It kind of sets you up for the programme and gets you excited and you want to watch it.
And the fact is, it's quite long as well, which
Yeah.
I think is quite nice. I mean, again, modern stuff tends to be a lot more punchy, a lot more. I mean, to have basically a very long reprise that just goes. It does go on. I mean, when he brings his head up every time, the whole thing just slows right down.
Yeah.
You know, it just the pace. It just goes back and forth all the time, and that's what's quite nice about it.
Yeah, I just thought that. It is a very long theme tune.
It's
Thinking
very
back,
long,
I've got a few CDs with theme tunes of sort of ITC series, things like
Yeah.
Randall Hopkirk Deceased, and you only get a snippet of them. Whereas on The Prisoner, you pretty much get the full theme with him doing the resignation each time and then the voiceover of who the number two is each week that changes. That, yeah, it's probably one of the longest themes that's been done.
I think the whole thing with the numbers, was that supposed to be some sort of comment on society, and we're
heading into theory territory now. Aren't we?
Well, surely that's the idea of a
That is
programme.
the idea,
Aren't you
yeah.
supposed to take from it what you will, or am I?
Well, that's what Patrick McGowan says. I mean, there's this quote where he says what he wanted to do was something where 1,000 people could come away with completely different readings of it. And I don't think that's true. I don't think you can come away with completely different readings. I think there's only a really a relative few number of meanings you can apply to it. I don't think it's quite as complicated where, you know, you'd watch it in 1,000 people, 1,000 different theories. I think that's a bit...
If you were being really snarky about it, could you just say, well, that's someone who didn't really know where they were going with it, and that's a kind of an easy sort of cop-out answer?
Well, no, because I think the central idea, my theory on it is essentially, it's to do with... I mean, to go back to the numbering system, what I think that represents is because number one is it's himself. He says ruining it for everybody who's
Spoilers!
listening.
It's his alter ego.
It's his alter ego.
How dare he?
I like to think that all the numbers are signed to the same person. So because no one's given a name, because they're all him. He's number 6, but they're a number 5, 7, 8, whatever. All these other. Well, the number 7.
I mean, it's very much of its time, isn't it? We're talking 67, 68. So there was a massive movement sort of trying to break away from organised sort of society and that kind of...
It's a very hippie...
Yeah. And the whole thing of being given a number and not having your name is kind of like, you're working for the man, this is it, you're the prisoner. Yeah. So... yeah, I can kind of see it working on that level, though if you're coming at it from the previous kind of Danger Man sort of ethos, the way they had those sorts of shows set up, you just see it as a spy community and the numbers go up. A
code number like 007.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, because there were random numbers in the village. People had numbers into the hundreds.
Yeah.
It wasn't just all the early numbers. There were different numbers. The numbers didn't tend to mean much. I think McGowan or someone said number 6 was a good number because you could turn it upside down and it meant something different. You could do that with 9 as well, okay, obviously, but that was the thing. It was.
It's interesting because there's some press people in the story who are like, I think from memory it's 117A and 117B,
okay,
which is a curious one because
that was the photographer and the journalist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so you'd think, well, that's a curious thing. So presumably, if they're both set the sides of the same personality, then it kind of figures that they're A and B. So it's a nice little. Again, I think what you have to look at, knowing who the prisoner was, you have to look at the prisoners around him, because that's the weirdest thing. I mean, the fact that, for instance, it's lots of young people for a spy community. If it was all these people who had committed crimes against the state, but you get young teenagers. I mean, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Bonkers.
That's bonkers. You don't get 18-year-old spies. I mean, that's just nuts. Teeny boppers trying to, in the general episode where they're learning stuff. I mean,
so the actual place it takes place is, in reality, is Portmeirion in Wales, and the idea is that ostensibly it looks like it's just obviously a very cool looking village, but somewhere where there's no bars as such for you to keep you there. But every time he tries to escape, it all goes horribly pear-shaped and he ends up back there again. And they've got this rover system, which I saw a clip of an interview with Patrick McGowan, and the original idea for rover was going to be this kind of all-terrain vehicle that could go around and sort of capture people who were trying to escape. And on day one of shooting, they tried it on a beach and they drove it into the sea, and it was supposed to come back out again. It just stayed in the sea and never came back. So the story goes, according to him, is that they were kind of stuck for what to do and looked up into the sky and saw this weather balloon and thought, oh, that would be cool. How long would it take to get some of those together? And by some short time they'd already grabbed a few, and by the time they'd finished making the program, they'd used thousands of these things. That's quite an iconic part of the program, isn't it?
And also as well, I mean, I take Rover, assuming that it's to do with, again, the body and the self and the one person. I always took Rover to be a kind of a white, like in Fantastic Voyage where Donald Pleasance gets killed by the corpuscle. Yeah. I always assumed it to be some sort of antibody type thing.
Because it does appear to be live, because it's launched from below the sea when they launch it. It comes up almost like it's attached and living below the water, comes up. And initially you think the idea of a giant weather balloon, what is less terrifying? I've got a pin.
But it's really creepy.
But it's creepy, I think, especially because a lot of the time it always comes up to people. It doesn't necessarily kill them, but it comes up and suffocates them.
Yeah, you see their face come through the sort of...
And in the village, when Rover goes to the village, everybody will often just stand very still.
And that's
not
another
move
thing
at
as
all.
well, because again, this ties in about the surrealist nature of it. The fact that these people aren't real. I mean, my view of it, all these people aren't real, because I mean, the actual, in terms of the actual what the story is in the making of it, they had to stop because the way that they filmed Rover, they had to reverse the film.
Yeah.
So it was a case where everybody just had to stop because otherwise they'd be walking backwards. So that's the technical side. But in reality, what that does, it just makes the villagers seem more unreal.
It works in dramatic terms as a byproduct.
Yeah, and also it does help to shed meaning on what exactly it's about, because the moment you realise that the villagers all stop completely, the same in Free for All, the episode with the voting, where they all suddenly turn around as one and they all speak as one.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there's this unreality about the villagers, and that once you get the angle on that, that kind of then says, well, you can then discount it as being.
So it feels like they're all in on it. Yeah. And the only person who doesn't know what the score is number 6.
That's right.
Yeah. Because a lot of time in the village, he's trying to find out. You know that number 2 is trying to break him each week and find out why did he resign.
So you never see number 1 during
number 1 is always in the background. We'll phone number 2, depending who's playing number 2. Sometimes very calm, sometimes they're very stressed when they talk to number 1 on the phone because they're a little bit freaked out because he is the boss.
And if you're not that familiar with the show, number 2... the person who plays number 2 changes quite frequently.
From one British character actor to another.
Yeah, there's some great people that have been in it. I mean, watching TV of that era, it's fun just to spot people that you've seen in other stuff.
It's like the Have I Got News for You guest host.
Well, just the beginning, you've got George Baker and Guy Dolman. Yeah. George Baker, known for a lot of films, a lot of television. Yeah. Guy Dolman, again, was in films like The Ipcris File, Thunderball. He's done a lot of
course, the
stuff.
peak of his career was being in Full Circle. Doctor Who, for anyone who doesn't know.
There you go. See, there are Doctor Who links here, which we will fit in. Actually, a quick Doctor Who link from Mark. Which Doctor Who story was filmed in Port Merion?
Oh, yes, that was The Mask of Mandragora.
10 out of 10.
Or, as I called it when I read the Target novel, Mandragora.
Or Mask, as I pronounced it when I was young. So it was Mask. I pronounced it wrong on two accounts. Mask of Mandragora. So, it's one of those titles which, as a kid, you're completely lost.
But see, if Rover was there, he would have captured the Mandragora. I can't pronounce it. Mandragora helix. Oh, damn, there we go. He would have captured that straight away. But
his rulers were very good, though. Yeah. Helix rulers? Oh, anyway. That was rubbish. Because the interesting thing is, when I first came to The Prisoner, Rover, when you watch it, Rover is one of the most exciting things in it. But he's actually, when I came to watch it again recently for this, he wasn't actually in it that often.
No.
And he's not really that important. I mean, he is just this thing.
I think it's just because it's such a really astonishing image that, particularly if you watch it as a young kid, that tends to stick with you.
Because the roar as well. I love the roar it makes.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, the roar does make it quite menacing because everyone's afraid of it, except I think later on when Leo McKern returns as number 2 in the last couple of episodes. And in his sort of headquarter base where they've got these various big 1960s comfy chairs that come up out of the floor. At one point, Rover's sitting in it, and I think McKern is on the phone to number 1 and says something along the lines of, no, get rid of this, I'm not an inmate. That he isn't actually afraid of it. Yeah. It's just a tool they use. But again, you never know, like you say, your symbolistic idea is quite a good thing, because you never know what it is, how it operates, how you can defeat it.
I seem to remember seeing somewhere that when Channel 4 showed them again initially in the early 80s, they didn't show them quite in the same broadcast order as they had originally. Does that make a difference? Or are they sort of discrete stories within themselves and there's no sort of through?
I think they're standalone. You've certainly got to have Arrival at the beginning.
Yeah.
And the last 2 episodes have to be Once Upon a Time and Fallout.
Yeah.
Because that's a 2-part story of the final number 2 saying the only way to break number 6 is I stay with him for a week. We're totally confined. And one of us will probably die at the end of it because they cannot break why he resigned.
Yeah.
So, but the other episodes can be a lot of them are standalone episodes. Some of them are similar. I mean, Goon always said that 7 of the episodes were true to the format.
Yeah.
And the others stretched it a bit. But when he talked
there were repetitions, definitely.
Yeah, he did talk to Lou Grade about it. And Lou Grade said, well, I want 26 because that's easier for American syndication.
Yeah, he originally came up with a 7-episode arc, if you like, or
7
story
episodes
plan,
of what they were going to be. And he said, this is what I want. Grade said, no, we need 26. They compromised on 17.
Yeah.
And the problem with Magoon, I find, is I think he's a great actor, but over the years, he didn't often talk about The Prisoner. Sometimes when he did talk about it, he talked about it quite in depth.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff he said was very, very good. A lot of the time, I think he was talking bullshit, but he was deliberately talking bullshit because he loved the fact that people would have conflicting views.
Yeah.
And, I've started watching it 12 or 13 years old. I'm 48 now, so I've been watching it for 35 years on and off. And I'm still excited about it, and I still love the fact when people come up with new things about it. Peter's already said things this morning that I haven't thought about, which is great when you think, I know the series really well. And someone comes up with something else. Yeah. And that's what I think McGowan's done in a series that you couldn't do now, that people still talk about it.
Yeah.
Not like, wasn't that a good episode? Yeah, that was great. But what does that mean?
If you had to pick out standout episodes, having said that there's not an arc as such. If you've got someone who's just watched Arrival.
I think it's easier to talk about the ones that you can sort of say, well, when it starts to get a little bit, don't need to see this, or it gets a bit repetitive. I mean, there are a few. I mean, for me, the episodes, there's 17 in total, and I think it's episode 11 through 15 where it starts to get.
Feels like
in fact, all of those are ideas. For instance, there's the one where, what's that one I was trying to think of? Living in Harmony, the Western one, which I personally don't.
Wasn't that just because he'd always wanted to make a Western?
Yeah, essentially. But also, it's the very same idea to do with mind control that we saw in ABC with the 3 spies that try and get the information out of him.
Yeah.
So it's a variation on the whole mind control thing. The brainwashing, transplanting to another reality, which we'd already seen before. It's just a longer version of that. And we're supposed to go at the end of Living in Harmony. Oh, that's clever, but we kind of have seen it before. So
what you're trying to say is those 4 episodes are effectively, for Doctor Who fans, the same as the episode in Planet Spiders, where it's just a massive chase that doesn't actually go anywhere and doesn't progress the story.
Yeah, and also as well, they're very messy. I mean, for me, there was one episode in particular which was really messy, which is It's Your Funeral, which is the one. I love Darren Nesbitt.
Yeah,
fantastic. He's one of my favourite number 2s.
Really good actor. Very good.
He's one of my favourite. I thought he's absolutely fantastic. But the actual story itself, I was watching it and thinking, do you know what, this does not make sense even in terms of its own logical existence. Because the plot about this is that basically number 2 and his aide Mark Eden, who Marco Polo fans from Doctor Who, I've just seen him on the screen. I thought, it's you 2 guys.
He's also the guy on Coronation Street who got shoved under a tram.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the actual story of that is a very confused one because it's trying to set up an assassination plot to draw in number 2 for some reason which doesn't quite make sense, and then towards the end of it, I'm watching it, and then right at the very end, number 6 manages to somehow stop the assassination, but then Darren Nesbitt might get assassinated. And it's a very confused piece of writing because I'm watching, I'm not quite understanding what exactly it's saying. I mean, I can understand the whole thing as a prisoner. But when it comes to some individual plot things, and that's the key one for me, the key episode which does not make sense, even in what it's trying to do with number 6 and to draw the information out, what the actual plan is. That's very hurried, that one.
I thought Fallout, the last episode that explains everything, was the one that didn't make sense.
I was happier with that, believe it or not, than I was with It's Your Funeral, which I think was just as a self-contained piece of drama was diabolical.
Yeah, I agree on the repetitiveness of the episodes that you do get, and that's why he only wanted so few.
Yeah.
But I found the only one I thought was weak was the last one, Fallout. I enjoy all the episodes and take them for what they are, even though they're repetitive. But it's odd because a long-running series like anything like Doctor Who or whatever that's been on for years will become repetitive by nature.
Yeah.
This was a much shorter series, and it still became that. I mean, some series in the 60s were 2 episodes on, it was the same as the episode that had gone 2 weeks ago. They're repetitive. I just found, I think, although he does repeat ideas, I still like the way they're done. But I do get the point that at the end you go, hang on, haven't we seen this one? Yeah. Didn't he do this so many weeks ago? Haven't we seen this idea
and
before?
Also the earlier ones tend to be, I mean, this is part of the fact that the original 7 were to the point, if you like,
Yeah.
and they tended to be the earlier ones. They tend to be more focused and a lot more like free for all. The idea of democracy and all that. They tend to be more focused. By the time we get to the end, the variations on the theme, and they're just having fun with it.
Yeah.
I think another episode as well was the one with what was it? The girl who was death, which is a lot of fun. I did actually enjoy that one.
Yeah.
But really, the fact it turns out to be a story for the kids at the end, that for me was a bit sort of. And again, the whole point of that from number 2's point of view is, well, he may have revealed something during the telling of that story. Which again, it's a bit tenuous. It's a bit sort of.
Yeah,
we'll suddenly hook it into a reason now at the end. We've got 5 minutes to go. Let's wrap this up.
I love the end with him turning and saying to the camera, "Good night, children," everywhere to number 2, like a dig at him. And I love the idea. I think if they'd have just left it as him filling his time in the village by telling stories to children, that would have been fine. Putting the fact that number 2 thought he would, might reveal something that way was, like you say, that was a bit tenuous.
What I would have liked to see the series do, I mean, for me, the series divides into 2 halves. There's the first half, which tends to be a lot stronger, and the second half, which is a bit more whatever. What kind of it hinted at for me in the second half was the idea of number 6 turning the tables on number 2 a lot more and playing games with them a lot more.
Yeah.
And I love that episode with Patrick Gargill where he's doing all these weird things just to confuse the hell out of him and just breaking him. And I would like to see more of that. I mean, for me, the episode Once Upon a Time, which I think is really rubbish, that for me is the truly dull episode. I know people like it. It's Leo McKern trapped in a room with Patrick McGowan. For me, that was really. I could see it could potentially have been wonderful, but it just that was very repetitive within the same episode.
I think the Hammer into Anvil episode is one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Because basically at the beginning, a girl is in the hospital in the village. She commits suicide because of putting under pressure by number 2. Number 6 witnesses this and wants to get his own back on number 2, so keeps doing various things to drive number 2 crazy by thinking there's this conspiracy theory going on, which there isn't. But Patrick Cargill, who later on did very light 70s comedy like Father Dear Father, is excellent as number 2. He is so another great character who in that role I wouldn't have imagined, and he really is good. I find Once Upon a Time, I quite like that Leo McKern. The issue I find is he's got this, McGowan's got this. These are the 7 episodes. And this is where I'm disagreeing with Patrick McGowan. God, I shouldn't do that. Where he wrote the damn thing. But he's saying there were 7 episodes that were structured, and he said you can't write a series like this at the beginning and not know how it ends. I feel in Fallout, whereas at the end, number 1 is revealed when they pull the mask off to be number 6. It's number 6's alter ego, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I think McGowan is lying. I think he wrote himself into a corner and did not know how to end it. I love the end that they escape from the village, they go back to London, and the very end shot is Patrick McGowan driving his Lotus car towards the camera, which is the same as the very first opening shot. So effectively saying, you're going to end up in the village. We all live in the village. And McGowan said, that's it, we all live in the village. We're trapped. Whether it's that we have to eat or drink, we all live in the village.
He makes a point of saying the thing that sums it up for him, the fact that the prisoner never really escapes, is when the butler goes to walk into his house in London, the door opens automatically, like all the doors do in the village.
Yeah. You never escape, and also the fact is that it's a bit silly. There's an episode of How Many Happy Returns where the prisoner's allowed to escape. He doesn't know he's allowed to escape. It's his birthday, and there's a lady living in his house that he goes and talks to and borrows the car and things, and she turns out to be the new number 2.
Right.
But if you look at his door, the number on his door is number 1. That's his house number.
Right.
So another clue that it's actually that he is number 1. But I like the alter ego idea, and I like the fact, yes, we do live in the village, that we don't live in a democracy, we're not free. I think all that idea behind it is great.
And he never sees number 1 because if you go again with the idea as I do that it's basically variations of his personality within the village. It's all the fragments of his mind in one village, in one place, in one idyllic place. I mean, even the thing about resignation, just to go off the fact that why did you resign? I mean, the word resignation can also mean you resign yourself to society, which is my own I've never read that anywhere. That's my own unique theory there. But the idea of resignation, why did you resign? Why did you give up? Why did you fall in almost? I mean, that's what resignation means. That doesn't necessarily mean resignation in terms of a job. It can also mean why did you accept everything, and why did you fall back and why did you go, oh, this is it then, I'm going to shop in Tesco's and watch soap operas. That's the word resignation has dual meaning, which I think is really deep. When you look at it like that again, it kind of that's what makes it a very simple story in effect, because you can do anything then. It can go as mad as a box of rabbits because you're dealing with one core idea which deals in madness and it deals with surrealism. So I think once you look at it from that point of view, The Prisoner is a very simple idea, he says.
I love that. I love, after all these years, having someone to say This Prisoner is a simple idea. That's great. Because it is. It's a totally entertaining series. When I first watched it as a kid, I appreciated it because I like James Bond. It was a spy story to me, and it was adventure. And I love the adventure of him trying to escape. And it was a bit annoying he didn't get out every week, but I still would watch it again.
On a surface level, as a kid watching it, it was just incredible to watch. You know, you had the whole thing with Rover, you had Port Merion, which itself is a really interesting kind of locale to have the series based.
When you guys watch it, because when did you... I first watched it when I was 24, so I was kind of old.
Yeah.
When you guys watched it, were the episodes like Free For All, which were obviously very political and very sort of full of meaning, were those episodes that you found a bit boring, and it was the ones where it was to do with the escape that were more exciting? Or how did you engage with the more boring parts of The Prisoner?
I've only got vague memories as a kid watching, because I was only about 10 when I watched it. But yeah, I think that probably would have been my kind of reasoning. You know, I would have been wanting all the action, because obviously the subtext would have been lost on me.
Yeah, so I like the idea of him being broken, because at that time, and I was quite young, so I was about 13, I'd been reading the Bond books, and in that, Bond is often in the books, unlike the films, tortured pretty often. And to me, it was almost a similar thing, but with his mind trying to make him crack and go crazy, or whatever. That I thought at the time, I thought they'd just try and drive him mad.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand the whole big concept of it. And I liked that. I did like the adventure stuff. That was good. But I liked... what I like the variety as well, that every time you had a new actor playing number 2 was trying to break him. So you got someone new each time. It's quite exciting. You got a new person in the part. It wasn't like one villain that carried on like a Moriarty or something like that. It was someone each time was different. And that was quite exciting. You should know what they're going to be like, how they'd react to the prisoner, what would they do this time. And that was it. It was always that not knowing that even as a kid, I really liked. So, oh, who's this? Oh, they're different to last week. And after a few, you catch on that they're always going to be different. Yeah. And I thought that was a very exciting. Although it was good to see people, a couple of actors came back, Leo McKern. Colin Gordon, thank you. So there you go. I can't remember his name. He's another. Yeah, he was in The General, wasn't he? He's a good, another British character actor. Yeah, it's full of it. And all the actors who played number 2, there were so many good actors playing the role. And that helped. The casting of it was good and made it stronger.
But I think for me, Once Upon a Time is where it pushes... I mean, Leo McKern's a great actor, Patrick McGowan's a great actor, but because the script was so repetitive and it was so one note, it was 45 minutes of the same, and even though they're great actors, you're watching for the actors rather than because it's telling you stuff. So that's where for me, Once Upon a Time is... Yeah, I can say that those batch of 4 or 5 that I mentioned earlier on, where the series started to go off the rails a bit and it became a bit more filler. But for me, Once Upon a Time was the one which I just found it was incredibly... I don't know. I wish it had gone further. I wish it had been more surreal. I wish it had been more dramatically tight. I think it should have been really engaging. You know, it wasn't. I don't think it worked for me.
It's got a reputation of being this real groundbreaking series. Do you think, because we're all three of us are into sort of 60s TV, do you feel it's sort of elevated above some of the other series that were around at the time, or do you feel that's perhaps looking back with hindsight and...
No, I think it was better because I know we still talk about series from the 60s, a lot of series from the 60s. And I can, certainly if you take ITC, the company that did it, around that era and later on, they did things like Jason King and Strange Report, The Persuaders, Round on Hook, Deceased, The Champions. They did all these series which were good and fun and entertaining and light, and they're not meant to be anything more. And you went away and didn't think about them. But what he was doing, because of the freedom Lou Grade gave him, was quite radical. The other series weren't dumbed down in any way. They were just what was on TV. People don't want to go home and think. They want to go home and be entertained and enjoy something after a hard day. Turn the TV on. There weren't 50 channels back then. There was a couple of channels and that was it. So what he was doing, I think, at the time was really way ahead of its time.
Yeah, I think going back to what Peter said initially, the whole thing about TV by committee that happens these days, and you said you couldn't see a programme like The Prisoner being made in the same way again. I think that's true. I think McGowan himself said that he had a very specific idea of what he wanted, and he knew it wasn't going to appeal to a mass audience, but the audience that did find it would appreciate it and would really get it.
He wasn't predicting the future, but some of the things there, the committees in the village and the council and things that they had to go through, he was sort of against that.
I mean, for me, I think it's the continuation, a natural successor to 1984, which when you see 1984, it's obviously bad because everything's grey and grotty, and there's obviously cameras in people's homes, and it's very in your face bad.
Yeah.
But what The Prisoner does is it sort of says, and which is what I agree with, is
hidden
doing
under
it
a
in a nice
veneer
way.
of niceness.
Yeah, and so you think, well, actually, it's not that bad, is it? Everyone's cosy, everyone's clean, everyone's got mini mokes, everyone's got beaches.
Who wouldn't want a mini moke?
And they do nice announcements. Fernanda Fielding does the voice of the announcements in the village to tell you what the weather's
It's
going
I'm
to
not
be
the
like.
sure
natural
about the
progression from
practicalities of
1984.
those bicycles, though. I mean, the ones they have on their little badges, I couldn't be.
Well, the reason behind that was because he wanted to have something that showed progress, but also antiquity, I suppose, and the idea of progression and
He said that these days you've got progress. We've got this high-tech equipment, even back in the 60s, all these cars and things. He said, but you're stuck in a traffic jam. What do? You cycle past them on a penny farthing.
And he starts out in quite a sort of smart, sort of natty suit, and then he ends up in the sort of traditional blazer with the old white trim around the outside, which is kind of iconic in its own way. But again, I suppose it's another way of giving up your uniqueness. You're just a number within the system.
Although he did remove his badge quite often that said number 6. He didn't. All the others would wear theirs, and he would often not wear theirs.
Now, I haven't spoken to you two about this, so I'm not sure whether this is relevant or not, but have either of you seen the remake that was made for ITV?
Yes,
I haven't.
Did. I
don't
saw
know.
the first episode of it, and I don't know what your thoughts on it, but basically I thought it was that awkward thing of an American, again, like with Doctor Who America, I suppose, where it tries to do surreal, it tries to do eccentricity, but doesn't quite know how far it can go. So there's a wonderful bit in it with the map where it opens out and it's massive or whatever, and I can't remember the exact details of the American version, but there was one surreal moment with the map in the thing, but the rest of it was so standard. It
By
was
the numbers.
By the numbers.
Literally.
Nice pun there. But yeah, it was so sort of very functional, very ordinary, and not very. It was kind of predictable.
Yeah, I found it difficult because I wasn't going to see it, and then I thought Ian McKellen's in it.
Yeah,
I'll watch it. He's a good actor. He's not going to accept rubbish. I thought it didn't dumb it down.
No.
At least it didn't make it simplistic into the second episode. Let's explain everything that's going on. And it was surreal as much as it could be, and obviously they had to get a different look for the village and try and move away. But I watched it and got to the end and thought, yes, it's there, but it's pointless. It's like, why bother remaking it? And I've never seen it since. I watched it once. It's like there's a...
How many episodes were there?
I'm not sure.
And did they do all the plots, or did they just take the main?
No, they took little ideas from it and things like that and had their own plots and things going. But again, if you've never seen The Prisoner, you might enjoy it as an offbeat sort of series like Wild Palms that the Americans did years ago. Just something offbeat and a bit different.
I think the only thing that the American version did really well was the desert surroundings made more sense because with The Prisoner you get that sense of, why doesn't he go over the mountains? Why doesn't he? But it kind of explores that more obviously in the American version, so it made sense of its isolation, which I felt it was more isolated somehow. So I thought it got that bit right, but that was the only bit out of so much. You know.
Because the village, him escaping from the village in the series is different. You've got the fear of Rover, who supposedly will stop anyone escaping. Other ways you've got the mountains. I always found it amusing having been to Portmeirion, that they do edit very well, and there's a lovely bit in Arrival, the opening episode, where number 2 takes number 6 up in a helicopter to tour him the village. I mean, you don't need a helicopter. I mean, the hospital, or what is the hospital in the village, is slightly outside the Portmeirion village itself, but you can walk there in like 2 minutes. And the village is very small, but they edit it very well to make the village look much bigger than it really is.
On the Mask of Mandragora at Doctor Who DVD, they have like a featurette about the locations used in Doctor Who, and from that you can tell they really are judicious in where they position the camera, because if they move it slightly to the right, it's completely different, and it really is a tight, small area. So how they use what they did with The Prisoner as well, fantastic, because as you said, it's not that big and it's not that expansive.
In fact, there is an episode of Danger Man that Patrick McGoon is in, where it's a village in Italy, but they film it in Portmeirion.
Was that the one that inspired him to then?
Yeah.
People sort of say by going there to visit Portmeirion for that idea, this was early 60s, he would have done this. It inspired him years later to write it. And that's why there's things with, one of the myths of this is that he is John Drake from Danger Man. And as I was saying earlier, it's almost like he was trapped in the Danger Man series. But there's all these. If you bear with me for a minute, I'll waffle endlessly about links to Danger Man.
We're talking about retconning here.
Yeah, here we go. This is where you edit severely.
We've got 3 minutes.
There
Go.
were people who said, that John Drake from Danger Man is number 6 in The Prisoner.
Okay.
Arguments for and against. Okay. First of all, big argument for George Markstein, one of the script writers for The Prisoner, says it's John Drake. Patrick McGowan says it's not John Drake. So there you go. The opening sequence that you watch every week, his photograph is dropped into the resigned file.
Yeah.
That's a publicity picture of Patrick McGowan as John Drake in Danger Man. So that means he's John Drake, or does it mean that just happens to be the picture they do? There's a lot of arguments that people say, yes, he really is John Drake, and there are things that say he's not. It's odd someone writing the series says he was, and someone else writing the series says no, he definitely isn't. Another thing, the Girl Who Was Death episode, which is the prisoner outside the village, he meets a fellow agent called Potter. Potter is a character from Danger Man. He's played by the same actor from Danger Man.
Okay.
You can then dismiss him by saying at the end he's telling stories to children, so it's a fantasy. The other thing, of course, is if he is John Drake from Danger Man, then when he is in the village, why is he puzzled by where he is? He's been there in a Danger Man episode and he knows it's a place in Italy. I personally think he's not John Drake from Danger Man for many reasons. Key reason is his accent is completely different as Danger Man to it is in The Prisoner, so I don't believe he is. But there were all, like I say, all these myths have been going for years of who is he and who isn't he.
I mean, for me, it genuinely, when I read about all these theories about whether he's the same bloke, I don't think it matters. It doesn't really matter whether he is or he isn't, because it's not one of those things that will alter your perception about what's going on.
No.
I mean, you can take. I mean, if you look at it, if he is, and he's obviously got a secret agent background, okay, fair enough. You just take that and then you get on with it. So but then if he isn't the same guy, then again,
it doesn't really affect your enjoyment of the program.
No, because all I know is that he works for the government, and you can put that in inverted commas. I mean, and it can mean absolutely anything. You know, he works for society. He works for the greater good. Once you take that meaning, and then you just get on and enjoy the episode. For me, the whole Drake thing is a non-story. Yeah. It's not really that important.
And it is strange that over the years they've debated it so much, and people keep coming out with all these arguments I've just been saying about it, about he is or he isn't, and it's like it's just another series.
I suppose as a bonus, if you do buy into the whole thing of him being that character, you've got 80 odd episodes of sort of prequels, if you like.
But I've not seen one episode of Danger Man, and I'm not inspired at all to see it, because for me it doesn't. I know it's another series. I know that it's not what The Prisoner is. So for me, I've got no reason to think.
It's going to be very
different.
different.
I know I'm not going to watch it and think, oh, this is going to be a bit like The Prisoner, because I know it won't be.
No, it's not. It's an entertaining spy series from the '60s, in the vein of other ITC series that were made at the time. Yeah,
run around.
It's not something I think you'd be discussing many years later.
I think it's time we finally address the elephant in the room, really.
Yeah, I wish you didn't bring an elephant.
Yeah, sorry.
It's harder to do the podcast.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's got to be Fallout, the final episode. I mean, Bill.
Start with Bill.
Bill, try and explain it and give us an idea of, or if you can't quite get your head around it, explain where it fails.
I've seen it endless times. Well, I've seen all the series endless times, and Fallout. It's the second part after Once Upon a Time. Leo McKern is number 2, with Patrick McGowan is number 6, trapped in this room for a week. At the end, Leo McKern's character dies. In Fallout, they revive him, bring him back from the dead.
As you do.
As you do, yeah. Shave him. Odd thing there, they shave him and he looks very different. I believe it was because Leo McKern was doing something at the time.
No, it wasn't. It was
what
because
was the reason?
Once Upon a Time was filmed a year before. It was filmed very early on in the run.
Okay.
And when Fallout was then hurriedly sorted out and they brought him back for it, by then he'd lost his thing, so he lost his beard. So they had to make the shaving scene so that then they could explain away the fact he was suddenly as bare as a baby's bottom.
Yeah.
Nobody thought of fake beard and wig, but
they do it in a subtle way by getting this massive grey. It looks like a sort of Dalek plunger on a huge scale just shoved onto his face.
It's one of those ignoble moments, isn't it? He had to get McKern with a big thing on his face.
I'll say he comes back, but is there a reason why he comes back? And is there a reason that the fact is number 2 is now going to meet number 1 and find out who he is.
Yeah.
So he is free. He's not addressed as number 6 anymore.
Yeah.
But again, I think there are good bits in it. I think a lot of it is a bit rubbish, and I do think he wrote himself into a corner, and he does go off on various tangents. But I think there's some nice bits where McGowan's character is going to address all the people around him. There's like this big committee and they keep clapping and cheering him out bits. But the moment he is given freedom and he's a free person, he starts to address them.
Yeah.
They clap and shout him down.
Yeah.
So he's still not an individual. He's still not free. And I like that. But I don't get all this singing, them bones, them
Peter,
dry bones.
Please
Peter's
try and explain
this
please
to me.
explain about number 48 and what the hell that was all about.
It's a lovely tune.
Just an aside point about number 48, who's played by Alexis Canna, who's the only person in the credits to get a box around his name for no very good reason. And then when
he's not free. He's in a box. He's not free.
He's not free.
There's symbolism behind that, Peter.
But it's only because Patrick McGowan liked him a lot and thought he'd amount to greater things. So I actually went onto Wikipedia, as you do in IMDb, to see what he'd done, and he actually died a few years ago, I think. But he didn't do it. That was the biggest thing he'd ever done. So I felt
because he was also the young gunfighter.
And he's actually he's got a very good look about him, but because most of his lines are dubbed and the way he speaks, probably like me, is very fast, dramatically you just think, that's probably helped to kill his career as well. The whole point about the village, for me, the whole village represents his body, if you like, his mind or his body, the white blood corpuscle and all that kind of stuff. And so the Dem Bones thing relates to the whole thing about self. It's about the physical side of it, and they're all singing about the body. The fact that it's basically what we're seeing is Patrick McGowan's character losing his mind and fighting for his own sort of sanity. I think that's how I believe it. So the monkey is obviously madness; it's primal rage or whatever, and the fact that everyone's
this thing of progress again.
Progress with yourself, I suppose. Yeah. And the idea that he's being shouted down by his own psyche, his own accumulation of thought, and that's how I perceive it. So when he's sitting on his own throne, it's like he's in command
crisis.
It's like he's in command of his own. He's trying to rally the faculties, etc. And I think that the little butler guy is that small part of him that's kind of, it's almost like rooting him in who he is. It's kind of like a reminder,
grounding in reality.
Yeah, and it's also like a part of the body, a part of his brain that's kind of saying I'll help. It's that little speck of brain that's still kind of on his side, if you like. That's how I view the butler character. So for me, it's just one. If you see it as one big mental struggle, and all characters in the village, including number 2, are all, because number 2, if you think about it as well, he's number 6. Number 2, the higher up you go, the more kind of in command it is. So you never see number 1 because number 1 is who you are cumulatively. So by him seeing who he is, there's number 1. He's seeing, if you like, the whole. He's seeing the sort of stable thing. You can't see it because it's the thing that's imperceptible whole, which you cannot see because everyone's made up of multi-different sides, and all the other numbers make up this number 1. So that's my view on it.
So you're arguing that all the other characters within the story are sort of aspects of his own personality.
I do, and that's why I think that it all kind of feeds into that. The fact that all these people are kind of young and old, that really they can't be other human normal people because they do operate in a kind of surreal way. The fact they all freeze, the fact that they're all a bit weird and they say cryptic things. When he's playing chess with the colonels, etc., and they all come out with that we're all pawns and all that kind of thing. It's obvious that it's all kind of they're not like us. I mean, if we were trapped in a village, they'd all be trying to escape. There'd all be this kind of let's just all run at them. And also it's interesting that each place in the village is you can look at it as a very kind of stripped down version of the self. So you get like the town hall, which is the command centre of the brain or whatever, or the dome. You've also got I mean, it's just even the surveillance. Just gone to the surveillance aspect of it. For a village that's meant to be really cameras everywhere, it's amazing how not everywhere is.
Sometimes it's a little bit out of range.
It is. He manages to sort of manage to do things like build a raft, and no one sees it, and no one even guesses it, and it's like
they disguise that raft as a work of art,
which you can see from the beginning. The moment
it looks like a boat.
And when he brings down the whole the sailors being number 2's face, I thought that was a great moment, but you could see it coming a mile. But it's funny how the surveillance aspect, they do keep on losing him at convenient point. Whereas if it was truly 360 degrees and they had everything covered, he would literally be able to do nothing. The plot would not be able to go anywhere at all.
And it'd be a boring series.
It'd be a boring series.
Yeah.
But I love the moment in an episode where there's that beach hut and he manages to do stuff inside with the radio.
Yeah.
And they're trying to pan the camera around and where can he be? We've lost him. And there's this massive fuck off beach hut where it's the only place he could
Perhaps
be.
he's gone in there, yeah.
But it's almost like they scan it and they
Yeah.
can't see it. And there's a wonderful moment where I just think, any right-thinking person would go, do you know what? Let's just
Yeah.
look in there.
Yeah. The week after, they should have had someone come in and say, I'm the new number 2, because the bloke last week did not spot the beach hut. So fired him.
Oh, shit.
Well,
And
I
that's the
think-
trouble, the difference between the reality and the fiction. You've got odd discrepancies. It's very much, again, linking to Doctor Who that, you know, there's a corridor, there's a corner, someone stands around the corner, all the guards run past and don't even flick their eye round. You know, it's like, oh, please, come on. You just suspending your disbelief.
But it sets itself
sometimes,
up for it, though, because in a series which is meant to make you think and meant to be about meaning,
You're
you therefore
thinking, yes.
expect it to be pretty cogent and pretty, sensical, because it sets itself up of a sense, it's very hard to tell what's deliberate meaning and what's just production cock-up or accidental meaning.
I like the things that are quite thought, because there's a lot of things he put in delivery to make you think, but things accidental, like I didn't realise, which is great. I've learned another thing today from this that you were saying about Rover, the fact that where they filmed it, that's why people had to stand still, and I never knew that. And I always like the fact there's an episode I love, which is do not forsake me, oh my darling, where nice simple idea. The mind of the prisoner is put into another person's body for various reasons.
For no reason. Let's be honest.
Idea. Well, no, there was
I
a
can't
very
remember. What was
key
the
reason why it happened.
forgot.
Because Patrick McGowan had to go away and film Ice Station
Ice Station
Zebra
Zebra,
and wasn't
yeah.
available.
That's right.
So I also wonder why
But in
they
terms
called
of
it
the
Ice
actual
Station
story-
Zebra. But
I thought you were
Not
going to say they
Zebra.
just watched the Savages on Doctor Who and gave them the idea.
no,
So what was the reason there?
I'm trying to remember. They put his mind in because they get him back out into the real world to get back into contact with someone that he was in love with
Right.
and was going to be with.
Yeah.
But again, it's not total. No, because they were looking for this professor who
That's
had
right,
the theory
Swedish or
of
something, Austrian or
planting
something, yeah.
someone's mind into someone else's mind. Mind transference, can
Okay.
it be done? And they didn't know where he was, and one of the few people who knew where he was number 6. So they released him, but they released him
It was
inside
like a
someone
mission.
else's
It was
body.
like, it was a mission.
So like it was like an
Yeah.
old-fashioned going off on
Yeah.
assignment, but
That's
in a
right,
weird
yeah.
psychedelic
Remember now.
1960s way.
I remember now, yeah.
I think the ultimate thing that really spells out that it was a really important series is the fact that they did a spoof of it on The Simpsons.
I've never seen that. I've heard of it.
It's awesome.
I've seen it, yeah. I can't
Homer
remember
gets
it,
knocked
but
out every 5 minutes by smoke erupting from somewhere. He gets into a phone box to make a call and starts pressing buttons. He gets gassed again. Doesn't he get gassed by flamingos as well or something? I think
Yeah, I think so.
he builds a raft as well. You're talking about the raft. He builds a raft. And It's great.
The weird thing about The Prisoner, though, is that for a series which he does manage to escape quite often. I mean,
Yeah, but a lot of the time he's let to escape on his birthday, isn't he? He's let to escape in the China's Big Ben to think that he has escaped back to London. So if he thinks he's at home, he will reveal something about his resignation. That's also the odd thing about the realism of the series and the surrealism of the series, where you've got the fact that where is the village? Well, various reasons throughout the series, people always went, well, that's daft, it can't be there. Because at one point it was like, it's somewhere in Lithuania. Another time it's off the coast of Morocco and North Africa. The final episode, Fallout, they drive
down
out
the
the
road,
road
isn't
on a
it?
lorry.
Yeah.
And it's on this A road, 30 odd or 20 odd miles from London. I must admit, that's another bit in the last episode, thinking of a tangent, something I really like is what's it, Alexis Can?
Yeah.
Is that-
yeah, Alexis Cannon.
Wandering
Alex
across
Cannon.
the motorway.
Great,
as you
what I
do.
love, a nice thing about freedom, whether it was deliberate, was he's crossing. Okay, these days you cannot walk across the motorway.
No.
If anyone's listening, don't do it. But in the 60s, there weren't many cars. But he gets off, waves goodbye in a nice way to the prisoner and number 2 go off, and he's thumbing a lift on the motorway. And after a while, he can't seem to get a lift. So he crosses the road and thumbs the lift in completely opposite direction. So I think that's saying something really good about I'm free. I'm free to
And
do
the
what
idea
I
of being
want
trapped
to.
in a box going along a road so you can travel places but you're still in the box. You can apply meaning to anything, I think. once you
Yeah,
get
this is the thing. Everybody will read something into it, and I hope there was more to it. McGowan only knows, and he's died now, what it means to him.
And how much of it was deliberate and how much is just random, because there's also that element as well of again, because the last episode was written, I think he had a week or two to write it, and he knew he had to finish it, and he knew kind of, I think as well, from what I can remember, he didn't quite know who number one was going to be, but it just felt natural that it would be that. I mean, for me, that was actually quite an obvious outcome.
But that's why I thought the end seemed rushed, seemed written as yourself into a corner, not planned, as he sometimes says it was planned. That you don't know which bit of truth he's like. Well, like in a village, you don't know who's telling the truth, and I think that's great. And I hope there was a lot of thought behind it. There's a playwright, Eugene Ionesco, who wrote nonsense plays, and people wrote loads of books about it and things. And many years ago, I read an interview with Ionesco. He was quite an old guy then, and they talked about the bold prima donna and plays he'd done, and people had read all this into it. Yeah, and he actually said, no, it's bollocks. It's nonsense. I just wrote nonsense. And all the things that people had spent years reading into it were what they thought. And he said, that's nice if they think that, but I had nothing behind it at all. It was just good fun.
It's like progressive rock, which gets slated for being...
slip in Jethro Tull.
It's kind of like...
Jethro Tull podcast.
But, I love Jethro Tull. But the thing about prog rock is that people try and... we live in a world where we like to understand everything in a glib, two-sentence way. So we can all go, well, that's what that's about. And we can say it quite glibly, quite cleanly. Everyone goes, oh, well, that's what that's about. Don't have to watch it anymore, or don't have to think too hard about it. Whereas with prog rock, I think you have to listen to each line and each verse and then take it on its own terms and then just divorce it from the rest of it, because the rest of it is going to just confuse the issue and not even tie up. It's all just random. I think that's almost like The Prisoner as well, I think. I mean, I personally come to it as the whole mind and body battle. It's one person's fight for himself. That's how I view it. But equally, I'd also see it as there are moments. So, for instance, the bit where, the very last episode where he's going down the end, I mean, I take that for what it is as a separate piece, because I appreciate it's going to be written on the hoof that no one can write something. So you have to spend years trying to make everything perfect. But because you know that it's basically a television show where he's written quite quickly and it's whatever, that really you know that there are going to be elements that aren't going to tie up, which might be random and accidental. And so you have to acknowledge that it doesn't matter. You can't study it too hard. As long as you get the general idea of what it's about. And you get the idea of what most of it is trying to do. If there are moments, again with Doctor Who or whatever, there's the occasional lapse in concentration, you accept them, or maybe some of it you can't tie in. Yeah. Or that if you do try and tie it in, it might just be wishy-washy, it might be a bit desperate, whatever.
So you'd probably say then that one of the strengths of the programme and why it's really
because
remains
a lot
so
of it
popular.
is bull crap.
I was going to say you can take from it what you want, but that's another way.
I think it's McGowan's thing of saying there might not be 1,000 interpretations, which he said, but there are a lot of interpretations, and everyone's happy to have their own. I love Peter's one about the body. See, I was thinking just The Prisoner. It is, it is just simplistic. We all live in the village. None of us are free. But some of us, like him, will try and fight against it. Well. But that is a very simplistic thing. But I'm a very simple guy, and that is it.
But certainly, I mean, that is a dual meaning. It's not just one meaning as well. There are loads of meanings. I take the body thing, but there are episodes, for instance, to do with democracy in Free for All, which is. When I first watched it, I didn't quite get the importance of that until I watched it. Perhaps I've seen it twice in total, the series, and I watched it very recently. Free for All stood out a lot more because it was about democracy. It was about the fact that everyone says the same things. Everyone says the whole crowd-pleasing things. Everyone gets into, and when you then get into power,
I'm glad politics
has
moved on in the intervening years.
Yes, but it's true because when number 6 becomes number 2, what power does he actually have? What exactly is he able to do with that? He's still trapped in a room. Yeah. He's still no better off than number 2. He's still trapped in his own body, if you like, or trapped in his own mind, trapped in his own sphere of normality, in inverted commas. I mean, that's quite an interesting episode to watch. When I was a kid, I've got to say, when I watched it, when I was 10 or 15 years ago, that episode was quite dull because I didn't quite understand what it was saying. So I can imagine a lot of kids watching that would have watched that and thinking, well, where's Rover going to come along?
But I do think as you watch it as an adult, if you watch it again in a few years' time, you'll probably think different things. Yeah. I used to find an episode like Living in Harmony, which when I first saw it, it was a Western, and I didn't really like it at all. Years later, I've come back to it, and I really liked the episode.
When I first watched it, that was the weakest episode. I'd hated that episode, but actually watching it now, I did think Once Upon a Time was for me the one which just bored me. Whereas actually Living in Harmony had moments in it, partly because the acting, Alexis Canner is hypnotic. He's got a good look about him. And I do think a lot of the actors as well. I mean, the woman who played I just thought was brilliant. All the women in it are fairly strong as well. So.
Well, I said women in it were strong. They weren't, like sort of Bond girls. Sort of not that these days Bond girls aren't strong, and they were strong in the 60s, but the ones that weren't, it's not like that. And McGowan was always.
So they weren't there as set dressing; they actually had real characters.
Yeah, I mean, McGowan was very much against. So I don't know if it's Catholic upbringing or what, but against promiscuity, and even in episodes of Danger Man where they had relationships with women, he was saying scriptwriters write that out. And the reason he was offered to play James Bond before Connery, and he turned it down. And one of the reasons was don't like the promiscuity. Some people said, well, they sort of said, well, it was promiscuity and the violence, but. Maybe the cold blood killing, but the fights, virtually every week, he's hitting someone in the prison. There's always a fight scene, so I don't think it was that. My regret is he didn't play Bond, because I think he would have been absolutely brilliant. He would have been a Timothy Dalton, Daniel Craig, way ahead of its time. But if he did play Bond, there would have never been The Prisoner. And I'm so glad he turned it down, because, The Prisoner is just such a good series.
I just love his acting. I love the way he sort of... He just goes off on one. His voice will raise, his whole tone changes within a heartbeat. And I just love his style. I love his clip delivery.
His diction is absolutely spot on. And when he just says that, you'd read a line. When he's back, someone says, "Oh, it is different. It is, isn't it?" And he'll go something like, "I can't do exactly right." It's like, "It is different. It is, isn't it?" And he'll just suddenly do that, and it'll.
His whole the way he says "Pop goes the weasel." I mean, that's just mesmerising. You can watch that, and it's just the way he does it is fantastic.
But then he'll talk to, is the woman Nadia in Charms Big Bed, where he's talking to her in a very soft, romantic toned voice, but he's actually talking about escaping. But it's almost like he could do the sort of full range, but his sort of angry young man thing is just brilliant.
In the lead up to this, I kind of had a little bit of a trawl through YouTube, and there's a video of him being interviewed in 1977 on Canadian TV, and he comes across as quite an eccentric guy.
I think he's quite paranoid. I mean, reading interviews and the fact that a lot of his roles have been very not similar, but they've kind of touched on. I mean, Scanners, when he was in Scanners, and he had this professorial working for the government, but also he's got that edge of paranoia about the whole world. The world he inhabits, Patrick McGowan, is one of paranoia, where he speaks quite openly about how he thinks that we're all prisoners now, which is the thrust of the 1984 take on now, which is perfectly valid and perfectly true, and it's such a good idea that I think he does obsess about it, and I think that's what he is. I think he's very paranoid in a nice way. I mean, it works to his advantage because he's got a personality which you don't often get with people who make stuff. He
does make sense about it. One of the last interviews I read with him, when he was interviewed by somebody, and they were talking obviously about lots of prisoner stuff, and one of the last things they say to him, saying, "Are you a prisoner?" He says, "Yes, but I'm on parole." I thought that's nice. He admits, "Yes, I am, but I'm doing my best." I thought that was a good thing. I mean, again, very, very intelligent guy, and didn't do a lot later. I mean, he did obviously the 60s.
He was in Braveheart, wasn't he?
Phenomenal success with Danger Man, and he just kept going like Roger Moore and the Saint. It was a series that kept going and going and going. And I don't know. After Prisoner, I know there was the backlash with the ending. If it had been a conventional series, I wonder he would have stayed in things, because Lou Grade, saw he had potential. And I think at the end of The Saint and stuff, Roger Moore was potentially going to do Bond, and Lou Grade said, "You can't. I've signed you up for the Persuaders. You've got to do it for the Queen." And I wonder if it had been more straightforward, Lou Grade would have kept him on and said, "Patrick, that was great. I've got something else for you next. There's something else." But
it looks like they spent a lot of money on that programme.
Yeah, I mean, The Prisoner was all filmed in colour when a lot of series were still being filmed in black and white. That was one of the things he insisted. But he did have so much.
And also the shoot for Fallout was very expensive because it was done on the hoof a bit, and because characters had to make up their own lines and run with it and improvise to a point. Because of that, from what I can tell, it's one of the most expensive episodes ever, because they just let the camera roll and just they really just did not know what they were doing. So
I know a little trick photography shots of all the different helicopters escaping from the village. And I'm thinking, Port Merion, you get one helicopter pad if you're lucky. But yeah, the last day, it did seem a bigger... He did say, that's one of the things McGowan always insisted on. He said, "I don't want to hear the word television when they're making it. Because television implies rushed, get on with it, do it quickly." And obviously he'd done TV and films. He wanted it to be treated with a bit more respect, and not, we're TV, we dumb it down. And it never was that. And I'm very glad that he stood by.
And that's why we remember The Prisoner, and not, to be honest, we don't really remember Danger Man. I mean, we talk about it as a forgotten show almost, because
Yeah.
really it's only ever talked about in relation to The Prisoner. People don't. We're not talking about. We haven't come here to talk about Danger Man, or as we wouldn't about The Saint, perhaps. You know, we don't. There are certain shows which are of their time, and probably 50 years from now, Danger Man will be even more.
So if ITV had a purge back in the 60s and just deleted a load of Danger Man, we wouldn't be getting excited.
I don't think. There will always be people who will love everything.
Yeah.
Every show will have its fans, but to be honest, The Prisoner is the fact we're talking about. The Prisoner says a lot more about The Prisoner, and to be honest, it says a lot about Danger Man as well. I mean, Danger Man is very two-dimensional.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that really, when people were watching it, I suppose, The Prisoner, and they saw all these other characters who are a bit two-dimensional, we can see that now as being quite clever, because they're meant to be two-dimensional in the conceit of the village. But of course, a lot of people watching it back then would have taken these characters as being how the characters like that were written back then, so they perhaps wouldn't have seen the weirdness.
Judging on the same level as all the other shows.
Yeah, we see a slightly different weirdness to it, in a way that people who would come from Danger Man would still see these characters as, the gentleman playing chess on the beach probably seems quite a natural character, because lots of characters back in the day were a bit two-dimensional.
They would take it for what it was. These days there would be a big write-up, or there'd be stuff on the internet, Radio Times. Everyone would know, not the plot, but they would know a lot about what they're expecting from The Prisoner before they tune in, so they can decide. Back then,
it would be marketed as a series.
Turn it on. It's Patrick McGowan. It's a spy story. I'll watch it, and I think in a way that's better. I think a lot of people who watched it who perhaps might.
Yeah.
These days, if it was launched on TV now, would read about it and go, "No, I won't watch that." I think I'm glad it was done the way it was done. I mean, ITC never made a series like it afterwards. Years later, they did things like Space 1999 and a lot of other sci-fi stuff, but they never did anything like The Prisoner again. And I think that's a shame, really.
I think the worst bit of The Prisoner every week, it always makes me go, oh, really? Is the bit where right at the very end of the episode you get the cutout of his face coming up with the bars cooking, just before we get the end credit sequence.
We all live in the village.
And I just think that's such a comic-y, horrible, obvious, unsubtle, just cheap way of doing it. The way you have it just suddenly cuts to this aerial shot of Port Mary and his face coming towards the camera, the bars come across it, a big clunky sound. Just that little bit makes me go, oh, I just don't like it. It's aesthetically, I just think that just annoys me.
We'd have to ask McGowan if that was his idea, or was that one somebody else slipped in.
I think it's a reminder, probably done by TV execs, to show that it's about a guy trapped in the village. As if you hadn't got that up until that point.
Yeah.
This is the final reminder you're going to get.
So you would have preferred him walking up to the camera, just looking straight in, William Hartnell style, and just going, "Be seeing you," and a little wink to the camera, and then that would be it.
I don't know how I would have ended each episode. I mean, maybe something very cryptic, or just not even look at the camera, but just maybe something weird happening that feeds into the overall image. So something a bit weird, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Did you notice that sort of saying about BCU? It cropped up years later in Babylon 5.
I've never watched it.
Walter Koenig from Star Trek plays a character in it called Bester, and he says at various points, "Be seeing you" with the actual wave from The Prisoner, because Straczynski, who wrote Babylon 5, was a big fan of The Prisoner, and just slipped it in. And I can tell you a silly story, if you want to.
Go on.
To do with me and a bizarre accident. I had an.
Did you ever get trapped in a village?
Okay. Let me out.
Did you get run over by a weather balloon?
No, I had an accident in work. I genuinely walked into a door, really, and through various things split my head. You can't see it now. Anyone who's listening won't see it.
Okay,
There's a cut.
Is this just an excuse that your wife's been beating you up?
Yeah, she has. Yeah. And I got this bad cut, and they glued the cut because it was quite deep, and the glue ran down into my eye.
Ow.
I couldn't open my eye properly. A&E tried to get it all out and said, "Go home with this," various things. I went back the next day, it was still painful. The eye doctor there got all the grit out, and it was hurting very badly. And finally my eye was managed to open. The ironic thing is, that week I'd ordered a T-shirt on The Prisoner. And of all the T-shirts I could get, it was the one that said, "Be seeing you" on the front.
I'm sure your wife didn't laugh at that at all.
Not at all, no.
No sympathy whatsoever.
So if you have a cycling accident and you get a T-shirt with a penny farthing on it, you just laugh.
Actually, I do cycle to work as well, but I've actually give that up.
Right, I'm touching wood now just so we don't jinx Bill on his way to work. So apart from steeping yourselves in the world of The Prisoner, what else can you recommend for our listeners? Bill, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, good.
Okay, because I'm off. Okay, I'm going to recommend old things first.
Okay.
Maybe old and new, but I will be brief because I've got a couple of things I'm going to mention. 1973, 40 years ago.
It was a great year.
It was a great year. I watched 3 films recently from 1973.
Okay.
Because when you've got a big DVD collection, sometimes you don't know what to watch.
Right.
So contrasting, and I won't go into detail because everyone will know these films, Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
Roger Moore's first outing as James Bond. Great fun. Really like it. Different to Connery, but for anything, watching Roger Moore, or rather Ross Kananga, his stunt double, escape from an island surrounded by crocodiles by jumping over the back of them. Marvellous.
Classic.
Except for the comedy sheriff.
Comedy Sheriff J.W. Pepper, very silly, really should have been edited
But
out.
it kind of sets up what you're going to get from Roger Moore from then on in, really.
Probably is. It's a sign, isn't it? An omen.
And there's a link to that. Everything's linked here today. A bit of a Bond villain in this, who even had a white cat and was stroking at one point. Also 40 years old, is Enter the Dragon. Classic martial arts of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Very sad to hear that Jim Kelly, martial arts expert who had one of the main parts, died recently.
Yeah.
But a great film. John Saxon, good cast, good fun, good martial arts stuff. Great Lalo Schifrin theme.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's
Very
just
much of his era.
again 40 years old, good fun.
Mm-hmm.
And a final 40-year-old film, which doesn't blend with those two either, is Edward Woodward and Christopher Lee in The Wicker Man.
Oh, yeah.
Still stands the test of time. Christopher Lee says it's still his favourite film, and he loves it.
Have you seen The Wicker Tree? Which is the
I
official
have seen
follow-up.
The Wicker Tree recently. I saw it. It's a waste of space.
It's better than the Nicolas Cage Wicker
It's
Man.
better than the Nicolas Cage remake, but
Then
I
again, just staring at a
There's
blank
a fake
wall is probably better than that.
Yeah, there's a fake Christopher Lee bit in it where he turned
Oh
fake.
yeah,
He
very
tiny
very
cameo
obviously
that's rubbish.
CGI'd in. Yeah.
It's just one of those things they shouldn't have even bothered with. I don't know why they did it. It's not really a sequel or follow-on. It's just a different telling of the story. And it was disappointing, really, after The Wicker Man. They are looking at the moment as well. I know a lot of bits of The Wicker Man have been put back into the film on the DVD, so you can see the different bits. Lee's been upset about it for years. Some of it went into landfill for the M25, but they're doing a worldwide sort of appeal. If anyone's got any old footage, not Doctor Who, because we've got plenty of that.
No, we haven't.
But if there's any old footage from The Wicker Man that anyone finds, they're asking for people to say, please return it in any condition, and we'll see if we can find the missing scenes.
I thought they had them all. Better quality, obviously, but
Yeah,
they have them already.
No, they have got some back over the years and got them in, but there's still more footage
is
missing
there
that
more?
Christopher Lee knows exists and other people know exists, so they're just trying to appeal. Chances of finding it might be small, but
It just takes one, doesn't it?
again, it's a great film of its day. It's very 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 well done. Very
Peter,
good
you've been
story.
enjoying Fury from the Deep, haven't you?
Oh yes. Are you going to link me into the my entry for You and Who?
Oh no, I thought you just turned it up somewhere in a
Oh, no,
garage sale somewhere.
I'm keeping all those secret till November. Hush, hush, wink, wink. No, yeah, talking about I suppose recommendations. I just talk about stuff I've seen recently or heard recently.
Yeah.
I got round to watching Hot Fuzz.
Yes.
Which is a delayed reaction because that's been out for donkeys.
Well, you've not seen it before.
No, I bought it ages ago,
Right.
but I was in the mood for it and then stopped it after a bit. And to be honest, I do think it's not very good. I love Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, Sean.
I love Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, but for me, Hot Fuzz just doesn't quite work, and it doesn't quite work as the trilogy which is meant to be very horrific and that. For me, I don't think it works as. It's great to see character actors.
James Bond as a supermarket manager.
Yeah,
Awesome.
come on, Timothy Dalton.
Oh, there are elements of it that are very,
Yeah.
very good. But as a whole, it's kind of underwhelmed by it. I know that it's sacrilege to say. because
Swan
a lot
at the
of people
start
love
is
it.
But
pretty
you-
impressive.
Yeah.
Are you guys big Shaun of the Dead? Because I've seen Hot Fuzz a few times.
Yeah.
It's very funny. I've seen Shaun of the Dead once. Thought it was
Yeah.
an average, mediocre comedy that, for them, was probably entertaining and funny to make. But watching it, I thought it wasn't bad. It was okay.
That's the complete inverse to me then, because that's how I feel about Hot Fuzz. I can imagine that it was fun to make,
Yeah.
and they had bigger budget and all this business. But for me, Shaun of the Dead was really very good. I loved
Yeah.
it.
We have the same opinion, just about different
just
films.
different yeah, and I did it because World's End is coming up, and I might get around to seeing that.
Yeah.
One. And I'm tempted. That for me would be more like Shaun of the Dead than it would be Hot Fuzz. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in that, seeing that. But yeah, radio wise, I can recommend a brilliant show. Nick Frost is in this as well.
Oh, right.
Called The Sofa of Time.
Cool.
It was on BBC 4 Extra, BBC 7, however you choose to call it these days.
So it'll probably be on a rotation. So
It's
probably...
you'll catch it at some point.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can find it anywhere. But yeah, Sofa of Time, 6 episodes.
And if you're listening outside of the UK, I think I'm right in saying you can actually listen to BBC radio programmes through iPlayer, whereas you can't always get TV programmes.
I'm not sure. Living here, I would have no.
Yeah, no,
knowledge
I
of
think
that,
I'm pretty certain of that. So yeah, if you like BBC radio stuff, and
it's
you're
called
interested,
it's called The Sofa of Time. It's a comedy. It's about two people who get sucked into another dimension. Mark Heap is in it.
Oh,
Fantastic.
sweet. Yeah.
One of his best ever. Some of the delivery. We talk about delivery of Patrick McGoohan. Mark Heap is one of those people like Kevin Eldon who sometimes will say something in such a way that you think, my God, if I was a kid, on the playground and I just been exposed to that kind of stuff, I'd be saying his lines, in a like for like way. But there's lots of moments like that. It's a fantastic little show. It's weird, but once you get into it, you think, I mean, they're never going to make any more of it. It's about 10 years old, this show. It's almost 10 years old, I suspect. But because
they've got a connection together from being in space, haven't they? So
it was Nick Frost and there's a main lead and someone else. The guy who plays Super Hands in Peep Show, I forget his name.
Yeah, I know the guy you mean, but I don't know his name.
But because he co-wrote it and he went to live in Australia, that's why there's only one series of this.
Right, okay.
And it's a fantastic 6 episodes. I mean, if you'd like, I mean, there's some Elven Quest, which is a Radio 4 pastiche of Lord of the Rings, which is very hit and miss. Even though Kevin Eldon's brilliant in it, it's not a very good show at all, I don't think. But Sofa of Time nails it perfectly in this kind of otherworldly sci-fi fantasy pastiche thing. It works brilliantly, so I'd recommend that, and I can listen to those again on the loop. What else have I been exposing myself to?
Well, you mentioned You and Who just now. I think we should give a little mention to that.
Yeah, I scribbled some words and things for J.R. Southall, Mr. J.R. Southall.
Starburst Magazine's J.R. Southall. That's how we have to refer to
call him
at all times.
Yeah, Esquire.
I mean, JR is sponsored by.
He is.
Starburst Magazine.
Whereas we're sponsored by CSO, the cult fanzine.
Well, CSO Cult Fanzine had a very good article on the tripods recently.
Ah, yes.
Written by. I'm turning into Jonathan Wasper here. Or that guy from The Big Bang Theory. Written by, getting diction rubber, Will Hadcroft. He wrote a good article on the tripods in the CSO magazine, which is a great magazine. And it also mentioned a book he'd written called The Blueprint, which I read recently. It's a teenage book, but adults like myself can read it.
Yeah.
And it's about a boy in the school, gets knocked out, wakes up. Almost everything is in black and white. His school is somewhere they can no longer leave. There seems to be no outside world. And it's a very good story, very entertaining. Appreciate it is written for teenagers. So it isn't overly complex, but it doesn't dumb itself down either. And it's even linked to the podcast because Will Hadcroft says right up in the book that he's very influenced by The Prisoner, which is a series he thoroughly enjoyed. So you can see Prisoner influences in the story, but it's a nice standalone story. It's not a copy of A Prisoner or anything. But I say the Blueprint is very entertaining.
And again, what I was saying about 1984, which is influenced so much as well. I mean, The Prisoner will be a port of call for many people because it's just got, like 1984, it's got so many. It's obviously got the catchphrases, it's got all the sort of iconography throughout it, but because it's about, I mean, a lot of cult television is about who we are. It explores the self, it explores our relationship with the world, and so The Prisoner really is, it will live on because it's just, if you're going to write anything to do with paranoia or anything to do with being controlled by other people and governments and democracy and freedom and, you can't go there, you can't do that. It's always going to be a talking point.
Yeah, The Prisoner said a lot.
Naturally, it's written for us, isn't it? Really,
it said a lot in its time. For now,
you're prisoners. You're not leaving.
Yeah. And in The Prisoner, they had cordless phones in the village before they happened in real life.
Wow.
Now that is a prediction and a half.
Well, my recommendations certainly You and Who, published by Milk Publishing. There's 2 volumes that have come out very recently. It's called Contact Has Been Made.
It's got a prawn on the front.
It's got a prawn on the front with electricity zapping out of its eyes, which is very cool. So there's 2 volumes. Myself and Peter have both contributed.
Yeah, what did you write, Mark?
I did something
Sell it now.
About City of Death, which is not the best one in the book, but I think there's a very good one about Fury from the Deep, I seem to remember.
That's readable.
By Mr. P. Webber.
Well, the weird thing is, I don't know if anybody's ever... Well, some people listening to this might have contributed to that particular tome, but you gave them 1,000 words, and I kept to that 1,000 words, although I could have witted on for bloody hours.
Which is unlike you.
It's unlike me.
Yeah.
I'm normally so restrained and succinct. but yes, 1,000 words to write about... Well, I suppose it's a way to write about Doctor Who.
It's about your connection with Doctor Who.
Your connection about the emotional and what you get from it and what it is to you. And to try and encapsulate in 1,000 words doesn't sound a lot, but I think most people make really bloody good stab in it. I've read quite a few of the essays. And there's loads of the Weird in Space one about a guy who watches it with his 3-year-old kid. It's wonderful because it's just that extra take on it, you know. And there's lots of good essays in there where people write about what it's like to sort of connect with the show at some point in their lives.
And other previous guests that have been on the show, the likes of Sam Hemming and Josh Zymer, they're in it as well. Yeah. So it's I really enjoyed doing it.
Sucky's in there as well.
Sucky Kark, yes, the legend that is Sucky Kark. He's done 3, I think.
Some people got to write more than one.
Yeah, well, I struggled to get one, and I was vaguely happy with it by the end. But it's just nice to see. Something you've done in print.
Burst with it basically because luckily for me my angle was that, again, talking about the radio is so important to me, and I love radio, and the idea that was I listened to that as an audio recording, just that's what got me into, or allowed me to accept, and then it was just an angle into it, so I enjoyed writing it, and I think lots of essays in there.
Yeah, I've read the first one, and I've read one of the other ones.
Ironically, I don't think you've got the one that I wrote for. So.
No, I've ironically got the second part
that I wrote for. I'm
starting
to take this personally, but
can you make it clear to the listeners? I've got You and Who, the very first one.
Yeah.
And then I've got part 2 of a different one. If you can explain to anyone listening why I got the wrong part, but equally it's still entertaining because the essays are good. They're not just rehashing the plots and stories. It's what happened about people. And some of the older essays, but essays that are written about certain different time periods in the past, quite nice things you've completely forgotten
There's
about.
one, you mentioned Sucky Kark, actually, in all seriousness, one of his was really, really good. It's about his local library and what that meant to him, and being able to, obviously this is pre-internet, so big stories about Doctor Who being cancelled. He'd go to his local library and read the papers there and go through the sort of archives and things, and he talks about having a Doctor Who book, which was, I think it was a celebration, and he virtually owned that for a year because he would keep coming back and loaning it out again until they got wires, and then they told him he couldn't have it back again, which is a shame. But so that's a great couple of books there, and all the proceeds go to children in need, so it's all for a good cause.
Definitely. Ironically, I gave away the celebration recently. Because
did you?
It just annoyed me because I've got this thing now about received fan wisdom, and the fact what I like about these books now is that, and about the democracy of the internet, is that there's a lot more viewpoints.
Yeah.
And the thing I hated about the celebration book was it was written by, and a lot of other books written in the 80s, a handful of people holier than thou said, "Oh, if you like, this is good Who, this is bad Who."
Yeah.
Received wisdom, which I've always had a thing about, and it just depressed me to own it because I think we've moved on from that. It's a relic from the past.
Well, I love the Horns of Nyman, which is
it's fantastic.
Not always the most lauded of stories, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I love it, and actually, it's not a pantomime at all. When people write about it, I suppose with The Prisoner as well, whenever people talk about certain aspects of it, they come out with the same tropes, the same phrases. Yeah. And the Haunted Nyman is always described as a pantomime.
There's some really clever ideas in the story.
And it's actually quite dark. It's not. I don't think it's that fun at all. It's not something you bung on, just after watching, Faulty Towers. I've got another one.
No, I think it's not an episode I particularly enjoy. But describing it as a pantomime is unfair when you could describe Colin Baker's entire tenure as the Doctor as a pantomime.
And that's just the costume.
And that's just the costume, yeah.
I think that we love, again, this is like The Prisoner, again, going back to The Prisoner, we like to be able to categorise everything neatly and cleanly. And a lot of people want to sort of, again, perhaps it's the OCD nature of fandom, I suppose, of any type of thing, where you want to kind of have everything spelt out in big letters, and that's why The Prisoner, you keep on going back to it because it's not quite as
it's not a beginning, middle and end, and it's so difficult to classify.
Just a few more very quick recommendations from me. David Mitchell's autobiography, Backstory, fantastic read, really, really good, so I'd recommend that if you like his style of comedy. I think you'll find it quite interesting.
Regarding his recent marriage, is he going to change his name to David Mitchell Corran by any chance?
I don't know.
St. Victoria's made an effort. At least
it gets as far as
Victoria Corran Mitchell.
Yeah. Oh, is she? Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. It gets to the point where he's proposed to her, so that's where that.
It's
weird. There's going to be a sequel, isn't there?
Probably.
It's weird when people change their names because Jessica Hine or Hyde, whatever her name is, she will always be Jessica Stevenson for me. Yeah. I find it hard. Just stick with the one. I just think that.
Yeah. Of course, Jenna Louise Coleman has now changed her name to Jenna Coleman. That should always be JLC to me.
But isn't it wrong when people? It's a very sexist thing that women have to change their name. That's a relic from the past as well.
Yeah.
Now that's why they've got Rory, haven't they? What did he call
He's Rory, Mr. Pond.
Mr. Pond.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm not. I think he goes, well, I am actually. Yeah.
which is nice.
Couple of other very quick recommendations. Hannibal, the TV show. I've been watching that via Sky, and that's quite entertaining. There's a James Bond link because the guy who played Le Chiffre in
Lance Mixon.
Yeah, he plays Hannibal Lecter.
Is that having? I like Manhunter and didn't like any of the other Lecter films. They were very Hollywood dumbed down and disliked them. How does Hannibal work as a series compared to a film version?
It's set before Manhunter, and Will Graham is actually very on friendly terms with Hannibal Lecter. They're almost colleagues, and I really enjoy it. I know that some people have issues with the Will Graham character because of the way that his particular condition is portrayed, and maybe I don't know enough about the whole sort of because it's very much linked with autism and the whole spectrum type thing. But I find it, as a complete novice and layman, I find it quite an interesting dynamic that they've set up, and I'd certainly recommend that. It can be a bit gory, as you probably would expect, coming from that sort of Thomas Harris background, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. Also, Nosferatu, which is a novel by Joe Hill. Joe Hill, I'm sure he probably gets really tired of being referred to this way, is the son of Stephen King, and he writes horror stories, so he's obviously got a bit of a heritage there. The first book I read of his was called Heart-Shaped Box, which I really enjoyed, and this, if anything, I think trumps it. I think is a really cleverly written story. It's got those same sort of tropes again that you'd expect from a Stephen King novel, but he's got his own particular spin on it, and it's really engaging, and it's a real page turner, and it starts off with the main character being a young girl, and she's given this BMX, or a rally burner, for her birthday, and when she's on the burner, she can access this portal which allows her to sort of, how can I say it? It's like a kind of...
Jamie and the Magic Torch.
Yeah, but a slightly more deadly sort of end result. Yeah, it's
Jamie and the Magic Horrific Torch.
Yeah. And it's a really engaging story. So yeah, I'd certainly recommend that. That is the end of my recommendations, because otherwise we'll be here all day.
I'll just say one more thing about The Prisoner.
Yeah.
I just suddenly had a thought where what would have been really who number one was. It had to be himself. I mean, it had to be really. Unless it was Danny Nichols dressed as the devil or something like that, which it perhaps wouldn't have been. Attention-seeking stuff like that. But wouldn't it have been clever if, when the chair swiveled round, if it had been Lou Grade sat there and he was number one? How clever that would have been.
And that would have guaranteed him more work.
It would have done. And Lou Grade would have loved that.
Yeah.
He would have absolutely loved that. I think that would have said a lot about television as well, so we've got another there, right there.
There was a missed opportunity.
It had to be either Lou Grade or himself, or Patrick McGowan. It could have only been one of those two, really.
Yeah.
Or Danny Nichols dressed as the devil. So it had to be one of those three, really.
So thank you both very much, guys. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Bill.
Can you think of anything else to say about Prisoner?
No.
We will think of loads of stuff when we leave.
There's probably a lot of things we could say. No, a thoroughly enjoyable series. And strange enough, I've just lent my DVD box set to somebody who's a big sci-fi fan and has never seen The Prisoner before.
Never heard of The Prisoner.
No, heard of it, but never seen it.
I was going to
but
say,
never really knew what it was about. And I'm
Right.
going to be quite looking forward to seeing someone coming new to it.
Yeah.
What they'll say about it, probably completely different to everything we've said today.
It's lovely to have a cult TV show that's only 17 episodes, because there's a lot of shows when people say, have you seen this series, and then you have to give them 3 series of a box set, and that's a lot. But it's nice that it's bite size.
Especially something like The Wire as well, where people will say to you, well, it doesn't really get going until like series 3. Stick with it, you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, if you watch enough of it, sit through all the rubbish stuff, eventually the last episode is worth it.
It's the Faulty Towers of the sci-fi world.
It's quite nice for all that. It's quite nice to bite size, as I say.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you so much, guys. And
Be seeing you.
Be seeing you.
Be
We've got to
seeing
say
you.
be seeing you. That's we're so cliched.
There you go. That's it.
all right.
Done.
Okay.
Right, I'm going to escape now.
All right. Okay.
Don't send Rover
Now
off
that
me again.
you think you're going to escape.
Yeah, go home and find you there.
You come back here again.
Well, as long as this isn't being recorded, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
That really freaked me out.
He records
Yeah.
everything.
It's our surveillance technique.
Yeah.
We put you in a living room.
I like the
with
way incidentally, because what Mark actually does, which the listeners at home don't know, is that for every recording of a program, he will dress the place to look like the program in question.
Exactly,
So it's
yeah.
nice that we've got a massive cavernous
Yeah.
room, really high metal walls.
I've got one of those nice big
round
circular chairs that you sit in.
What's
and
that big
just
white
spinning
ball
round on
outside?
it.
The effort you go to, Mark, you really
Yeah,
should.
yeah.
Because what are you going to do for the tripods one then?
I've painted my cat white and called her Rover for the duration of this episode.
Roar, damn you, roar.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll have to see what happens. Well, I've already got my head shaved, sort of, because I'm slightly follically challenged, and I'll probably just put a really pants-looking sort of hairband type thing like they use in the tripods onto my head to signify that I have been capped.
Or you just come in dressed like Jake the Peg or something.
Well, something like that maybe.
Yeah.
Well, you know, let's
With an
not
extra
go down
leg,
that road.
diddle, diddle.
Let's not talk about my extra leg. I think
No.
that's not for
That's
here.
not a podcast.
That's not for
We didn't even get to talk about the sequel, Prisoner Cell Block H. We didn't even
Yeah.
get onto that at all,
Quite a
which I'm
shift in tone, I
disgusted
felt.
by.
Yeah. Although I would have been quite interested to see how Vinegar Tits would have survived in Portmeirion. I thought that.
I've
was
never
cool.
seen it, so luckily
Ah.
I
It
can't
used to be on
make
late
any
at night.
jokes.
My mum used to
Yeah,
watch it.
it
Like
was.
that.
Yeah, it's one of those shows that everybody else seemed to watch apart from me.
It was real. Get home from the pub, slightly inebriated, and watch the thing.
Is that why it had a following? It was all drunk people.
Possibly. Oh, that was my own experience anyway.
And that's the end, isn't it, Mark?